Hi again, everyone. I'm Ollie Matthews. This is Societal Narcissism. This video is sponsored by contribution from River. River gave a general contribution, which I'm going to use for this video. If you followed my channel long enough, you know a couple topics I have been on have been how bad the public school teachers have been. This is before even the woke nonsense. This is, I've said, overpaid and underworked. Overpaid and underworked for the public school teacher. And these scam diagnoses that have been given to children since the 80s to force dangerous SSRIs and stimulants down their throats, specifically down the throats of young boys. Again, if you're on X or if you're even paying attention, you might already seen this article I'm talking about from the New York Times. But Sean Davis, the co-founder of the Federalists, really has the best take on it. New York Times finally gets around to admitting that ADHD diagnoses were a scam to justify the wholesale drugging of multiple generations of energetic boys. The real epidemic has been teachers who can't handle boys who have lots of energy. Imagine thinking surplus energy, something we wish we all had, was a disability, and then telling tens of millions of boys something's wrong with them because their bodies crave exercise and activity. As a perfect way to sum up how Gen X went through school. The type of because the teachers are horrible now based on what they're going to do to your kids, but they weren't educating us either 40, 50 years ago. The same friggin' boomerfied education system trying to jam every round peg through a square hole, not caring. They can't handle you. Look at, put them on drugs, put them on Ritalin, put them on ADHD. That was the one thing my mother resisted, was any of that ADHD, the medication, because she didn't want to admit that there was something. She thought it would reflect badly on her. That if I had to be on some kind of behavioral medication or some mental that it's a slight on her. That's not to say she wouldn't have transed me in a second if I was born now, because that's God's mistake then. That's not on her, that's God's mistake. Full on, I would have been full on, without question. So, it's a very long article. I'm going to try to get through some highlights on it. It's from the New York Times. So here we go. In the early 1990s, James Swanson was working as a research psychologist at the University of California, Irvine, where he specialized in the study of attention disorders. It was a touchy time for the field. The Church of Scientology had organized a nationwide protest against the psychiatric profession and Ritalin, and then the leading medication prescribed to children diagnosed with the deficit hyperactivity disorder was one of its main targets. And the problem is, here's the thing. Whatever you think of Scientology, and I don't think very much of it as a religion, obviously, but they were right. Two things could be true at the same time. You could think they're completely out of their minds, but they could still be right about an issue. They're absolutely right on the issue. The problem was the vehicle that was delivering it. Like you could say, when Tom Cruise went with Matt Lauer and there was Brooke Shields and your glib, he was right. And everybody was acting like he was crazy. No, he was right. Tom Cruise was right. That's not to say that's not an endorsement of Scientology whatsoever. You can think Scientology is wacky, and they were still right. Whenever Swanson and his colleagues gathered for a scientific conference, they were met by chanting protesters, waving signs in airplanes overhead, pulling banners that read, "Psych, stop drugging our kids." And they were right, because that's what they were doing. They were drugging us. And this is all led by the boomers. The boomers' refusal to raise us. They neglected us and let us run the streets, and the ones they couldn't neglect, they then drugged because they didn't want to deal with us. They didn't want to deal with the actual rigors of parenting. They didn't. If you gave them any pushback, they were going to drug you with Ritalin because it was always about them. That's 79%. Not the 21%, the 79%. It was true that prescription rates for Ritalin were on the rise. The number of American children diagnosed with ADHD more than doubled in the early 1990s, from fewer than 1 million patients in 1990 to more than 2 million in 93, almost 2/3 of whom were prescribed Ritalin. To Swanson at the time, that increase seemed entirely appropriate. Those 2 million children represented about 3% of the nation's population. And 3% was the rate that he and many other scientists believed was an accurate measure of ADHD among children. Now understand that before even 1993, if it was less than about, that would mean before 93 was about 1.5% of children were actually having ADHD issues. And as you see, as these children are dealing with boomers longer and longer, their behavioral issues and their neglect issues, and we've got to throw more and more Ritalin down their throat as the boomers aged. As the boomers age, they're getting older. They have less energy to deal with children. So instead of doing what they might have done in the 80s and looking the other now, it's like, oh, we got to do more drugs, more drugs, more drugs, more drugs. Aimed at boys for doing what? For basically acting like children, for normal male behavior, which is what they have been trying to crush for decades. Still, you didn't have to be a Scientologist to acknowledge that there were some legitimate questions about ADHD. Despite Ritalin's rapid growth, no one knew exactly how the medication worked or whether it was the best way to treat children's attention issues. Anecdotally, doctors and parents would observe that when many children began taking stimulant medications like Ritalin, their behavior would improve almost overnight. But no one had measured care for large-scale scientific study of how common that positive response was, or for that matter, what the effects were on the child taking Ritalin over the long term. Right, these drugs usually have some kind of immediate change. Okay, but as we know and we've learned, you have to see over a period of months and years what these drugs are actually going to do. And then they always make it worse. Always. And there's always side effects from them. And so Swanson and his team of researchers, with funding from the National Institute of Mental Health, began a vast multi-site randomized control trial comparing stimulant treatment for ADHD with non-pharmaceutical approaches like parent training and behavioral coaching. Swanson was in charge of the site in Orange, California. He recruited and selected about 100 children with ADHD symptoms, all from 7 to 9 years old. What are the symptoms, though? I mean, and where are they getting it? If you're getting the child has these symptoms from the parents and the teachers that don't want to deal with them in the first place, like, what are you studying? What kind of children are you really studying in the first place? What, unless you tell me what the symptoms are. Also, Orange, California, well, Orange is pretty conservative. Back then was a really red place. So California was much different in the early 90s. I mean, it wasn't like a red stronghold, but Regardless, who is diagnosing these ADHD symptoms? The parents and the teachers that don't want to deal with the children in the first place? What are the type of children, and who's the arbiter of what's improving and what's not improving on these drugs? That's the whole thing. Some were given regular doses of Ritalin, some were given high-quality behavioral training, some were given a combination, and the remainder, a comparison group, were left alone to figure out their own treatment. The same thing happened at 5 other sites across the continent, known as the Multimodal Treatment of Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder Study, or MTA. Jeez, it was one of the largest studies ever undertaken of the long-term effects of any psychiatric medication. The initial results of the MTA study, published in 1999, underscored the case for stimulant medication. After 14 months of treatment, the children who took Ritalin every day had significantly fewer symptoms than the ones who received only behavioral training. Because Ritalin turns you into a zombie. Duh. If you're a parent or a teacher that doesn't want to parent, or doesn't want to do their job and actually teach or deal with a hyperactive kid, yeah, Ritalin's great. It's working. He just sits there and drools on himself all day. Awesome. Until he snaps in 5 years. A 14-month study isn't telling you anything. All this is they're fast-walking this drug so they can put more of it on the market. Word went out to clinics and pediatricians and offices around the country. Ritalin worked. This was good news not only for families with children who struggled with attention issues, but also for the corporations that offered pharmaceutical solutions. Here's the thing. This is 99. They tried to put me on Ritalin (1983? 1984? 1983. This drug had been around. It was known to be bad news in 1983. It already had a negative connotation. So this study, and to me, I'm thinking, is bullshit anyway. The whole study was for the purpose of getting it out on the market because my mother already knew. I'm not putting them on. Everybody knew Ritalin was major nuts. You didn't need a study in 1999 for this. I was in 4th grade when they tried to put me on Ritalin. Acting like Ritalin was some kind of new drug in the late... No, it was not. In the years after the study's initial publication, Swanson began consulting for drug companies. Of course he did. He advised Shire, which manufactured Adderall. There we go. One goes to the next, and now they got you stimulated. Oh, now he's too much of a zombie. Oh, here's some meth. Here's some meth in pill form. Can't figure out why Gen X and Gen Y and now this new generation wants nothing to do with any of it. This is why they are the real hope coming up. Which manufactured Adderall, a similar stimulant medication, on how to formulate an extended release version of its product so that children could just take one pill each morning instead of just needing to visit the school nurse's office in the middle of the day. So now that even the nurse can't do her job, right? Now you're doing this. Oh, God, these public school workers. You wanted them on the drugs, but now that you got to give them, it's more work. Can't we come up with a pill so they could just take it at home? Do you see this? Do you see how lazy these people are? When you hear them crying in the street about their contracts and unfair and work, and this is who they are. Doped your kids, demanded they be on these pills, and then they complain that they might have to administer them. after they said they needed to be on them. Get out. Come on. Underworked and overpaid public school teachers. Always have been. Though Swanson had welcomed that initial increase in the diagnosis rate, he expected it to plateau at 3%. Instead, it kept rising, hitting 5.5% of American children in 97, then 6.6 in 2000. As time passed, Swanson began to grow uneasy, and his colleagues were continuing to follow the almost 600 children in the MTA study in the mid-2000s. They realized that the new data they were collecting was telling a different, less hopeful story than the one initially reported. It was still true that after 14 months of treatment, the children taken Ritalin behaved better than those in the other groups, but by 36 months, the advantage had faded completely. The children in every group, including the comparison group, displayed the exact same level of symptoms. Swanson is now 80 and close to the end of his career, and when he talks about his life's work, he sounds troubled. Not just about the MTA, the results about the state of ADHD field in general. There are things about the way we do this work, he told me, that are definitely just wrong. I spent the last year speaking with the leading ADHD researchers in the United States and abroad, and many of them, like Swanson, expressed concern over what they see as a disconnect between the emerging scientific understanding of ADHD and the way the condition is being treated in clinics and doctors' offices. Edmund Sunga-Burke, a researcher in psychiatry and neuroscience in King's College London, described the situation in personal terms. I've invested 35 years of my life trying to identify the causes of ADHD. And somehow we seem to be farther away from our goal than when we started, he told me. No, the source is narcissism. The source is parents with a cluster B personality disorder, as is most of these problems that are going around. And the solution that you guys came up with was due to a bunch of people with cluster B personality disorders. A generation, 79%, riddled with cluster B personality disorder, the baby boomers. This was all done at the behest to appease the baby boomers. So their children didn't get in the way of their good time, of their wants, their needs. I can't neglect them. I'm going to dope them. And the pharmaceuticals were more than happy to oblige. And the corrupt teachers unions who've been hiring these loser teachers for going on 60 years with their Cadillac pension and their tenure and their lifetime tenures, crying poor mouth how they're overworked and underpaid. Bullshit. It is the opposite. And then when they demand these kids get drugged, it's too much work for them. Can't you come up with a drug that is just long lasting? They're bums. They're bums. Taxpayer-funded bums. Why is it every profession that you're not allowed to question is also the profession that is funded 100% by the taxpayer? Gee whiz. And these corrupt pharmaceutical companies were just more than happy to jump in and profit. Acting like Ritalin was some kind of new drug. It wasn't. We have a clinical definition of ADHD that is increasingly anchored from what we're finding in our science. Despite these questions, these scientists have begun to raise the growth of the diagnosis, shows no signs of stopping or even slowing down. Yeah, because we are in a society of rampant narcissism. And it is going to affect these children through either hyperactivity or they're just normal children, normal boys as well. You're either dealing with cluster B parents that can't deal with a normal hyperactive child, or you're dealing with a child who's reacting to an abusive situation at home. ADHD is a symptom. It's not a source. It's a symptom. And the symptom will always point back right at Usually the borderline mother, but narcissistic father, narcissistic family, chaotic family system at home. Every time. Let's just dope them. It all started with the boomers. 1.5%. We went from 1.5% to where we are now. So, I'm not going to go through the entire. You guys could go through the article yourselves, but the rest of it is just pretty much rehashing the same points again. And it's as a New York Times article, it's a really long one. Thanks, boomers. Thanks, 79%. But we've known it. I mean, I've known it's been a bullshit diagnosis. I've called it out, and there's lots of them. There's lots of bullshit diagnoses that point right back to narcissistic abuse, I'm sorry, ladies, some of you get ready. Again, when you tell me I have fibromyalgia, my immediate response is, no, you don't. Nobody does. Nobody does. So, thank you, River, for another contribution. I really appreciate it. Thank you to everybody watching. Please leave any opinions in the comment section below. And again, if you want your story read on the channel, you have a topic you'd like me to cover, something you'd like to expose, you'd like to set up a Skype, a phone call, have a private video made, you'd like to sponsor a video like this for someone who needs help and can't afford it, or just make a contribution to the channel in general to keep it supported, growing, and successful, because this channel survives 100% on contributions from all of you. Without you guys, all this goes away. So if you like what you see here and you want to see more videos like this, you know what to do with either the Cash App, Zelle, PayPal, and email links in the description box below. Also, please like and share this video wherever you can. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't. And be sure to click the subscription bell to be notified of all my video uploads. Also, be sure to follow both my channels on Rumble. Follow me on X and Telegram as well. I'm Ollie Matthews. This has been Societal Narcissism.